Gopal was here 2 years ago. He gave a presentation on women and Maya in the Bhagavatam. Now, I know a lot of you notice there's a lot of new faces here. That's because the men that came for that conference 2 years ago, their wives would not let them come back. So we gave them a better topic this year, Living Truthfully, Reflections for Men. We thought that would be a better chance you all can come back again. No, seriously, really appreciate he's here. Gopal has been a Vaishnava since birth. Both his parents are initiated members of ISKCON, active leaders of that. His elder brother, Radhika Raman, has also come in and spoken here many times. So the two of them are both professors. He's a professor at Aurora University outside Chicago. He's a professor of ethics and religion. So he's not only well-versed as a devotee, but very knowledgeable in terms of academic study. And we're very grateful that he's here again with us this year. He's also on the board of the ISKCON New Vrindavan Board of Directors.
Hi.
So we're very grateful. Now, he is a professor. There will be an examination at the end.
Thank you, everyone. It's such a blessing to be here every year. Especially would like to thank Anudra Prabhu for hosting this always, and Jai Krishna Prabhu for hosting us here. So
Bhakti Mark Swami.
Bhakti Mark Swami. We'd like your blessings. Thank you. So I think they put me first so that after I can give my presentation, I can relax. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share something which I've been thinking about and studying myself. As Prabhu mentioned, at Aurora University, I teach ethics and religion. So this is something that I'm forced to think about as part of my profession. But it's so nice because our teachings, scriptures, the Vedas, they are, you could say, the source book on this topic. They give the deepest, most wonderful teachings on this topic. We were just talking during our discussion time that why are we still in Krishna consciousness? And one thing that Anu Prabhu said is because of the ideals that it presents. It presents the greatest ideals. And so we'll discuss that today. So I'll start with some prayers. Om Jnanam Dividandhasya Jnanam Jana Shalakaya Chakshur Nidhyam Kena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Radhani Swadhantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Shri Guru Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijanathikam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Madhan Sagana Ravita Shri Krishna Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Taptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchavalakadukasya Krivasindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So the topic is living truthfully. because I understand that the general theme of this mantra retreat is surrounding relationships. And so truthfulness is a big part of relationships. And so the topic of truthfulness is something that has been truly very much discussed in philosophy and in ethics. And there's a lot of disagreement about it as well. Some people say that, no, say the truth, but say the truth when it has a good result. Otherwise, don't say the truth. Right? If your wife comes in the morning, asks you, am I looking beautiful today? Then you know you can only say one answer, whether it's the truth or not. And that is the right thing to do. Others say that no matter what the situation is, you should always say the truth. Because saying the truth is the right thing to do, and the right thing to do is independent of the circumstance. Any action is either good or bad, always, universally. Immanuel Kant, the famous Western philosopher, called this the categorical imperative. That it's always good or bad, regardless of the circumstance. And that's why certain things we must agree upon based on pure reason that are always good, and we must follow them in every circumstance. And one of those things that Kant said was truthfulness. So he was of that school that said it's always good, it's always important to be truthful. So, very famous philosopher, very famous man, took a very strong position on this. And so naturally then he was challenged. So Mr. Kant, you say that we should always say the truth. But what would you do in the case that you have a murderer at the door? This was one of the challenges that was put to Kant. His philosophy was put to test. Is lying always bad, they asked? Because what if you have the circumstance where you're in your house and you see your friend running away from a thug, and he's running down the road, and there's this thug chasing him, and he runs into your home and hides, and you close the door. And then that criminal is like walking around the street and knocking doors. He knows he's somewhere on this street, and he comes up to your door and says, is this man who is running, is he hiding in your house? Would you say the truth? Even in that case, goes the challenge. And the reason why he was asked this challenge didn't change. I say, what happened? The reason why he was asked this challenge is because this is a true situation. This was a true incident at that time that people were faced with this situation. Anyone want to guess when this actually happened? When someone came to the door and asked, what was it? World War II. Yes. Someone else is also saying the same thing, different thing? Slavery, at the time of slaves. In this particular case, there's so many instances was referring to the Nazis and the Jews, right? This reflection that has become popular in philosophy reflected on that case, because when the Nazis were persecuting the Jews, trying to kill them, Hitler was doing genocide, ethnic cleansing, and he wanted to kill every single Jew. Then some of the kind-hearted Germans hid these Jews in their basements, right? They hid them in their basements, and then the Nazi soldiers, the SIS, they would come, and the SS, they would come and knock on the doors and say, do you have any Jews in your house? And many of these Germans would lie and say, no, I do not. So Kant is asked, if you were in such a situation, what would you do? On one hand, it's deontological truth. It's one of the principles of morality that you should always say the truth. On the other hand, it's one of the principles of morality to care for your friend, to be compassionate and kind towards your friend. So in this case, would you say a lie or would you not? So, take a few minutes. If you were in Kant's shoes, and you have a lot at stake, your whole philosophy is based on this principle, what would you do? Would you say a lie or would you not? Just to give you an example, Mahatma Gandhi was once asked that, he's the champion of the non-violence movement. He was asked that if someone was attacking your daughter to rape her, then would you stand up and fight them? Would you use violence to fight them? Because you said non-violence is the way, ahimsa, paro satya, that we must always be non-violent. And at that time, when Gandhi was fighting his non-violence movement, he said, I would still be non-violent. I would not use any violence.
Wow.
So he was still, and many people, that's why they sacrificed their lives in the non-violence movement, and it said that, that led to his victory, etc., etc. So Kant is in this dire situation, and what should he do? Take a moment. What would you do in this situation? Would you say the lie, or would you say a truth? So just discuss amongst yourselves for a moment, and then we'll come back. Okay, 1, 2, 2, 3 people. Okay, so 2 people. So Immanuel Kant's response is that he would say, I would still say the truth. I would not still say a lie. However, he said, I would still also save the life of my friend. I still say the truth, but I'd still save the life of my friend. So how do you think he would do that?
He would redefine that truth is not just semantic truth, maybe it's something deeper, tied in with the higher values of life, like compassion. So it's not just semantically or yes or no, but there's something more than just that's a guess.
That's a good guess. That's a very nice proposition, but Kant would say that no, you have to say the truth. That is But yes, but he does do some finagling. Obviously, you would have to get through this situation. You'd always say the truth, and yet you would save your friends. Like, how would you say the truth?
Well, I would say, like my mom always said, it's better to be kind than right. Sometimes it's much better, because then you start thinking, we know the truth, like Krishna consciousness, we have all the truth there, and we keep hitting you. And if you don't want to, but being kinder is more powerful than actually.
Okay, very good. Back there?
I would let them know that I have a guest in my home, but what you're looking for and describing is not what we have here.
Ah, okay. So he was one of the 2 people who said, no, I would still say the truth. And that's how you would say. You would say, I have a guest, but it's nothing like what you described.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay.
Let's say something similar, like maybe just that he doesn't consider whatever title the person at the door is referring to. He doesn't, it's his friends. Friends are here, so no, you're asked first. Just a redefining of the title, the way that.
Okay, you redefine the title, kind of, and answer the question truthfully, but not in terms of what they are understanding. Very nice. Who was next? Prabhu back there, yes.
This person was in my house.
Ah, okay. So you said they were in my house. Yeah. So exactly. There's ways in which we could stretch the truth. Now, some of these instances, you have to be careful, because if you say I have a guest, but it's not this person, then they may be like, let me check. Let me check.
Well, my guess is indisposed right now. Could you hold on a minute?
Yes. Yeah.
Those are Nazis, right?
It's a lies.
They're in the restroom right
He is
now.
indisposed.
Yes, he's telling lies, so it's a lie. He's telling lies not to lie, okay?
So what was the original question?
The question was,
Specifically, I mean.
the question that the man at the door is asking is, do you know where this person is? This person that he just described?
No, I don't know.
Because, yes.
Because I don't know specifically where he is.
Okay. That's exactly what Kant said. Yeah. So they said, I would respond that, I don't know where this person is, because I don't know where he is. Like, I don't know if he's on the left side of the closet or the right side of the closet. He could be down in another room or this room. And so I would still say the truth. I don't know, but I would still say, I would not say a lie. So now, many people ask Kant, aren't you basically saying a lie? Like, you're just, you're clever in your words, you're stretching the truth, but you're basically saying a lie because you are misleading that person. You know what he's asking, you're not telling them an answer, and you're stretching the truth.
It's a white lie. White.
And so Immanuel Kant responds to this. He says that yes, indeed, you're absolutely right. I am stretching the truth. He's not completely saying the truth. However, in responding like this, it's still better than lying outright, but I'm still respecting the truth.
But it's
that what Unitarian did?
It's up to the gentleman, it's up to the Nazi to ask the right question. If
Yes.
he didn't ask specific question, he says, is he standing on one foot? Is he?
So that's the thing, it's a very tricky situation. You have to be a master supercomputer to give the perfect right answer and also not say the truth at that moment of tension. But Kant is trying to illustrate a point here, right? Most likely you wouldn't know what to say at that time. You would fumble just seeing the big gun in their hand.
Yeah.
But his point is that still I'm trying to respect the truth. Which is very interesting because if you look back at the examples in our scriptures, back for example the Ramayana, there's some instances where this is the principle. This is very much the same mood. For example, there's the story in the Ramayana of Sita, the mother Sita, who is banished to the forest, right? Not banished, left in the forest because there's citizens who are accusing her for not being chaste. And then she has her two sons, Lavkush, and they come back to the city and they start to sing the Ramayana, written by Valmiki. She's left at the ashram of Valmiki and he starts writing the story of the Ramayana. So they sing the true story. And when the citizens hear this, then their perspective, their mind changes. They start to realize they made a big error. And some of them start to now revolt in the other direction and say, bring her back. And before some of them were saying, no, send her away. But now some of them are saying, no, this is wrong, bring her back, bring her back. And this gets to Lord Ram. Now, obviously Lord Ram was very happy because he knew that Mother Sita is chaste. And it's very happy news. However, another section of the citizens are still not convinced. And he wants to make sure that everyone is convinced. So he says, okay, bring back an assembly. Bring the assembly. And we'll make the decision in the assembly and both sides can speak. So the citizens come who are of a mixed opinion. And Sita, maybe is also called. She's also brought as a witness, and Valmiki is also there. And the citizens have a big argument. Some people are saying this, some people are saying that. So finally, Valmiki Muni comes forward. And he stands in the middle of the assembly. He raises his hand and he says, I am the sage Valmiki, and I have never spoken a lie in my life. This is my vow. I've never spoken a lie in my life. And today I say to you, based on my mystic power, we were hearing a Tika Darshis this morning, based on my vision, I am telling you that I've never found a woman who's more chaste than Sita. She's fully chaste to Lord Ram. And the moment he says it, then all the citizens, they come to their senses and they come rushing to Mother Sita, fall at her feet, and beg for forgiveness. So his vow of truthfulness at that time, at that moment, Valmiki's vow of lifelong truthfulness, in some ways saves Mother Sita's life at that time. Of course, we know later on she goes into the earth, all those things. But as far as her honor, which is more important than life for a lady at that time of her stature in that culture, he saves her life because of his adherence to honesty. Because he always respects the truth. People believe his word. So Kant's point, he makes a similar point that yes, in this case your friend might lose his life if you say a lie, but saying the truth always also saves lives. It saves a culture, it saves a tradition, it saves a society from falling into the habit of just always saying untruthful things. Right? So Valmiki, he says that I have never spoken the truth, I have never spoken a lie, and today I tell you that she is perfectly chaste. Right? So this is an example from the Ramayana. There's also an example in the Mahabharata. Anyone want to? Yes, Yudhishthira Maharaj. Same situation, right? Krishna tells him that you lie, right? And he fulfills that because a devotee is supposed to, bhakti is higher than truth. Bhakti is higher than dharma. So he has no problem saying the lie. Of course, we say that different versions of the story say he hesitated, this and that, but he lies. But he does so by still respecting the truth in some way. He says, yes, Ashwatthama is dead, the elephant. Ashwatthama, the elephant, is dead.
Is that when the chariot touched the ground because his chariot would use his chariot because it's so vertical?
Yes.
Would levitate, right?
Yes, and that's what legend says, that again, different versions of the story, some would say that no, this was pure bhakti, so it didn't make a difference. But even for the Dharma Shastras, so to say, they say that he was so fixed in dharma, in truth, he was so wonderful that he would never touch the ground when he walked. He would float slightly, and similarly, his chariot would never touch the ground. Many people said this about Srila Prabhupada also, that when he walked, it was like he floated, because he was so pure-hearted. But then when he says this lie, because it wasn't still technically true, he touches the ground for a minute. Okay. But nevertheless, he does that. Now, one of the points I make later on, which Prabhupada actually makes, is that Maharaj Yudhishthira was so dharmic and truthful, not because he was attached to a mundane form of morality. Because this is a big discussion in our Krishna consciousness, not because of that. But he was so attached to dharma. Why? Because he knew that dharma pleases the Lord. Following dharma pleases the Lord. And Krishna was so pleased with him that whatever he requested, Krishna never said no to Yudhishthira Maharaj. So when he's leaving and after the battle and he's going, after Kurukshetra battle takes place and well situated, many people come and request him that Krishna, please don't go, please stay. The famous prayers of Queen Kunti are for that reason. She comes and prays to the Lord, says these prayers that don't go. But Krishna still made his mind that I'm going to go. But then Maharaj Yudhishthira comes and asks him. And Krishna says, okay, I'll stay another month, or however long it was exactly. He stays a whole, another time period. And Prabhupada says it because he was so dear to Lord Krishna. His qualities endeared him. Because dharma is given by Krishna, Krishna is pleased when we are respecting dharma because we're respecting his laws. We're respecting who he is. Right? And so, regarding truth, as I mentioned, there are two perspectives. One is a consequentialist perspective. Consequentialist moral reasoning locates morality in the consequences of an act, in the state of the world that will result from the thing you do. Categorical moral reasoning locates morality in certain absolute moral requirements, in certain categorical duties and rights regardless of the consequences. So here we see what I've described here are some examples from the scriptures of the second case, mainly, of always following dharma, no matter what. And later on, I'll come back and also show that how Krishna himself at times breaks his vows or breaks the principle of truthfulness for a higher principle. And that's more of a, you could say, consequentialist mode of reasoning. But the essential mode of reasoning is still the same, and that is bhakti or love. Both of them are doing it out of love. Maharaj Yudhishthira is doing it out of love, and Krishna is breaking his promise also out of love. So before that, just a little bit about truth and its place in our tradition. So truth comes from the root sat, to be or exist. It generally connotes truth, reality, or eternity. Right? So truth in Vedic scriptures doesn't just mean saying the truth. Satyam also refers to existence. It's the heart of reality. Truthfulness comes from the root sat, which means to be or exist. Na satya paro dharma, the Mahabharata Shanti Parva says, there's no dharma higher than truth. Truth is the very foundation of righteous living. All other virtues depend on it. And how do we know this? Because the Bhagavatam also says this, right? That there's 4 legs of the bull, of dharma, the bull. And these 4 legs are austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. In this age, the other 3 break, but truthfulness is still there. Why? Because it's the last to go, because it's the most essential. Once you lose that, then you really lose all dharma. But it said even that leg is wobbling. Truth is still respected. Mercy is not important. Cleanliness, austerity is not seen in Kali Yuga. We are especially seeing it today. But still people have some respect for truth. And even that is now wobbling. It's the last refuge of righteousness. Truthfulness is so important. There's different meanings of truth, as I mentioned. In the most essential sense, we have all the ways from the Vedic times, kind of a metaphysical usage. Satyam is that which truly exists, in contrast to falsehood. Right? Prabhupada used this in terms of speaking in his lectures, right? That Maya means that which is not, accepting falsehood. That which is false to be true. So truthfulness also refers to existence, that which exists. It's often associated with Brahman. And what exists is the Lord, Brahman. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Brahman, truth, the Lord, is truth, knowledge, and infinity. Unlimitedness. And as I mentioned, Prabhupada, often contrasts truthfulness with falsehood. Satyam is that which is unchanging and absolute, while mithya is relatively real or illusory. So, what is relative is false, what is absolute, unchanging, is true. So if this is the case, and then one more thing before that. Then, so it has a metaphysical sense, it also has a moral and ethical sense. Satyam eva jayate nanvitam. Truth alone triumphs, not falsehood. So it's seen as I mentioned, the fundamental virtue of dharma. And in the scriptures, it's seen as synonymous with dharma. Satyam vada dharmachara. Speak the truth, practice dharma. So it's the cornerstone of dharma. It is dharma, and it's also existence. Right? We saw 2 senses of this. But now, in the ultimate sense, it holds a very deep significance, because how often we have heard Srila Prabhupada call Krishna, the Lord, the absolute truth. And the Bhagavatam begins with this. Satyam param dhimahi. The first verse. It says, we meditate upon the supreme truth. which Srila Prabhupada says refers to Krishna. So if Satyam refers to Dharma, and Satyam refers to existence, then it must refer to God. Right? That truthfulness is actually a manifestation, a form of Krishna. And that's why in our Vedic texts, people are so fearful, you could say almost, and so unwilling to break their vows or their promises, to not say the truth. Why? Because respecting the truth is respecting God. Because their worship to God is in some ways keeping the truth, because the Lord represents the truth. A very wonderful example of this, in addition to the ones we discussed, right, the Ramayana is also a wonderful example. Lord Ram goes to the forest knowing that his father will die. So he doesn't really go for the sake of his father's dying, but he goes there for the Lord to respect the truth, to respect Krishna in some ways and set an example. But a very wonderful example of this is Bali Maharaj in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Right? This verse from the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada writes a wonderful purport to this as well. Please repeat after me. Kshina Riktaschuta Sthana Shipto Badhasya Shatrubhi Yatisha Parityakto Yatanam Anuyapita Guruna Bharati Sitas Shakto Jaho Satyam Naso Subrata Chalayukto Maya Dharmo Nayam Tyajati Satyava. Although bereft of his riches, fallen from his original position, defeated and arrested by his enemies, rebuked and deserted by his relatives and friends, although suffering the pain of being bound, and although rebuked and cursed by his spiritual master, Bali Maharaj, being fixed in his vow, did not give up his truthfulness. It was certainly with the pretension that I spoke about religious principles, but he did not give up religious principles, for he is true to his word. So, such a attachment, and he's again a pure devotee to the Lord, to respect his vow, to respect truthfulness. But he's also a Mahajan, a pure devotee to the Lord. Why would he do this? Because he sees it as his offering to the Lord. Right? He sees the sages and saints before would see the truth as Krishna's representative, his incarnation. They would not want to unnecessarily, unless ordered by the Lord, not violate the truth. Then a later text says, nothing is more sinful than dishonesty. For this reason, Mother Earth once declared, I can endure any weighty burden except for a person who lies. Purport. The earth is home to many towering mountains and vast oceans that are incredibly heavy. Yet Mother Earth manages to support them without difficulty. However, she feels significantly burdened when she bears even one individual who is dishonest. It is stated that during Kali, lying has become commonplace. Mayaiva Vyavaharika Vyavaharike, Bhagavatam 12:2-3. In everyday interactions, people have grown accustomed to telling numerous lies. No one escapes the sinful consequences of deceitful speech. Gopal is writing here. No one escapes the sinful consequences of deceitful speech. Given these circumstances, one can only imagine the extent to which this has weighed down the earth and the entire universe. So how many of our, problems in our society, in ISKCON, politics, this, that, would be solved if everyone spoke the truth? Or like Gopal says it so nicely, no one escapes sinful consequences of deceitful speech. Not just someone can be truthful but be deceitful, right? You can manage that also. But Prabhupada is saying, no, that we should not have deceitful speech, because we can never escape the sinful consequences of that. We sometimes take one or two exceptions, like, oh, Maharaj Yudhishthira said a lie for Krishna. And we make that into our crutch to speak the lie, to speak lies regularly for our own pleasure and senses, not for Krishna. Right? So the exception should not become the rule. Those are exceptions to teach us of the higher principle of bhakti. But they're exceptions because in general, bhakti is expressed by serving Krishna's instructions, which come in the form of dharma, which come in the form of truthfulness. And one of the points that Prabhupada regularly focuses on, which is very relevant to our theme for the month of retreat, is that therefore a devotee, truthfulness in its most general sense means leading a truthful life. The devotee not only speaks the truth, but he presents himself, his position, his relationships. He leads his relationships in a truthful way. So this is a verse from the 10th canto, Brahma's prayers to Lord Krishna. He's the original, you could say the first one in our parampara system, the first man, so very great authority in this universe. He says, "O my Lord, a devotee who abandons the path of empiric philosophical speculation, aimed at merging into the existence of the Supreme, and engages himself in hearing your glories and activities from a bona fide sadhu or saint, and who lives an honest life in the occupational engagement of a social life, can conquer your sympathy and mercy, even though you are ajita or unconquerable." So Lord Brahma is saying here that one who leads an honest life, while glorifying you and hearing your glories from a bona fide sadhu, that person conquers you who are unconquerable. This is also a theme in the Gita where Krishna tells us over and over again, and Prabhupada writes this. Krishna says, "One who restrains the senses and organs of action, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. On the other hand, he who controls the senses by the mind and engages his active organs in works of devotion without attachment is by far superior." And Prabhupada writes in the purport, "Such a sincere person who follows this method is far better situated than the false pretender who adopts show-bottle spiritualism to cheat the innocent public. A sincere sweeper in the street is far better than the charlatan meditator who meditates only for the sake of making a living." So, in one place, His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj says that the purpose of this passage is not that we should become only street sweepers, but the purpose of this passage is to tell us that it's important for us to lead an honest life. That is the purpose, that we should lead an honest life rather than being a charlatan meditator, rather than acting in some way in our relationships that is dishonest. So I'm going to skip this in the essence of time. And I'm going to actually jump here to one quick thing out of order because it kind of fits here. In so many places, I won't read this in the interest of time because we're short of time, Krishna tells how these qualities of truthfulness and other qualities of dharma make a devotee very dear to him. Right? A devotee is dear to him. But he says that one who has these qualities is very, very dear to him. So why does he say that? These are ethical qualities, that one who is self-controlled, satisfied, kind, free from false ego. Because these qualities, like in the case we saw of Maharaj Yudhishthira, when they are manifest in the body of a devotee, then that devotee becomes very, very dear to the Lord. So now, this is a strong case we made for being truthful devotees, right? And now, as I promised, we're coming back to reflecting on, okay, that's our principle, right? This is what Krishna wants us to do. Again and again in the Gita, in the Bhagavatam, in the Maya, it's being stressed. But how do we manage this when the consequences don't favor it, right? Like I started with that example. Sometimes it feels the right thing to do to not say the truth. So we have examples of that in Krishna's teachings as well. In terms of speaking the truth and the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells us to say the truth. However, he has one more point that he makes. Does anyone know? Ah, yes. Bhagavad Gita 17:15. Anudvega karam vakyam satyam priya hitam chayat. Austerity of speech, vak tapas. So tapas, austerity, vak tapas is the austerity of speech. Consists in speaking words that are truthful. So that's the first thing. Prabhupada writes that first in the list. So they must be truthful, but also pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating to others. And also in regularly reciting Vedic literature. So the bhakti process is not blind to the consequences. It's still not like that far as the manual count. No matter what happens, devotees die, we will say the truth. No, we also have to say it in a way that is pleasing and beneficial and truthful. This is our test. This is what Krishna is telling us. Another way to write this is truthful speech that is pleasing and beneficial is an austerity. So, if we take the same translation, put it in other words, we all want to practice austerity for Krishna, and we do physical austerity. If we want to do a wonderful austerity for Krishna, it's saying, and austerity is practice truthful speech that is beneficial and pleasing. So this is kind of positive, where we can actually practice it, okay? How can I lead my life? How can I deal with this situation so that I can be truthful, pleasing, and beneficial? Right? So some situations come to us, and we may just have to respond to them at the moment. But most of the time in our life, we are actually in a situation where we have time to reflect. So the austerity is to engage in truthful speech that is beneficial and has kindness and purpose. Truth must be paired with kindness and purpose. Okay, I'm saying the truth, but what's the purpose of it? Why am I saying it? Will it benefit anyone? Is it the right time to say it? It's the right thing to say, but maybe it's not the right time. And Krishna was faced with the same conflict as Immanuel Kant was, right? So Krishna had the choice. He made the vow that I will not lift any weapon in the battle of Kurukshetra. This is my vow. I will be neutral. I will be your charioteer, Arjuna, but I will not lift a weapon. So he had his word. He had to be truthful to it. On the other hand, during the battle of Kurukshetra, Arjuna is in a dire circumstance. He's about to die, and he's Krishna's dearest friend. And Krishna also needs to protect Arjuna's life. So Krishna, when two vows are in conflict, one must find a way to resolve them. If one cannot resolve them, one has to find which one is more important. And what does he tell Arjuna? Shipram bhavati dharmata, shashtra chandani gachati, kaunteya pratijani, name bhakta pranashyati. He says that my devotee will never perish. Of the two, that vow is more important. So Krishna jumps up from his chariot, he takes up a wheel, and he runs towards Bhishmadev. And the moment he does that, then Bhishmadev drops his weapons. Why? Because he says, this is ultimate victory. Aha, Krishna, I have made you break your vow. What could be greater victory than this? And even in breaking his vow and in this pastime, Krishna is showing, or the pastime as a whole is showing, the importance of the word at that time, right? The vow of that time, because real victory, it was such an honor to keep one's vow, a dishonor to break one's vow. Real victory for Bhishma was like, see, I made the enemy break their vow. Of course, this is Krishna, his greatest lord, but in that lila, that pastime, he said, this is all I wanted. And of course, the devotional meaning is he wants to show the greatness of Krishna's love for his devotee. And I just wanted to show you show the world how much you love your devotee. That you will even break that which is so dear to you and your devotees, that is truthfulness. You will break that just to protect your devotee. So it shows both things, the greatness of the devotee, that's the most important thing, and also the greatness of dharma, like that. And what's also interesting is that when Krishna breaks his vow, then he does so in similar ways as what Maharaj Yudhishthira did and what we were discussing before. Does he break it completely, like, absolutely, or how does he break his vow? Huh? Yes, he could have called the Sudarshan Chakra like this every single time. But he picks up the chariot wheel because a wheel is a weapon, but it's also not a weapon. A wheel you could use for self-defense, it's just a wheel. And after all, he's a charioteer. I mean, what else would he pick up other than a wheel? His charioteer picks up a wheel to put it back. So even Krishna in that case is doing something to respect the truth. It's his own form, right? Satyam Param Dhimahi, that he is also, in some ways, in a subtle way, respecting the truth by picking up a wheel rather than his Sudarshan Chakra. So, just to conclude, last slide. So, our goal in our Krishna conscious movement is Prema Pumartha Mahan, right? Prema, or love for God, is the highest destination. Not to be a perfectly moral, truthful person. Love is the highest destination. Ethical behavior is not just a matter of adhering to prescriptions or prohibitions, but also an intrinsic expression of one's love and devotion towards Krishna. So if love is the highest thing, why are we still ethical? Because it is an expression, it can be, it generally is an expression of our love and devotion towards Krishna. Such an approach moves ethics beyond mere duty to the realm of loving reciprocity. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings outline a moral framework that emphasizes loving devotion and the cultivation of virtues like truthfulness, humility, compassion, and selflessness for the pleasure of Krishna. So, this is, and you see that in Prabhupada's movement, this is not the left. In Prabhupada's movement, he established the ethical basis, you could say the real ground basis of ethics by establishing these four principles. If it was just about love and just about chanting the name of Krishna, then why no meat eating, no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication? Because these, one does these to please Krishna. One needs to do these things to please Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada told us that those four principles are represented of the four core values, which is mercy, cleanliness, honesty, and self-control. So when we begin our Krishna consciousness, we begin it by following the most basic form of it. But then we're told in the scriptures that, well, we need to now expand it. Like, mercy at its very basis means no meat eating. I mean, obviously, if you're killing someone, you can't be merciful. But as we advance spiritually, we need to be more subtle and be kind to others, meaning not just not kill them, but also, maybe open the door for them and, try to help them, right? So the same thing is with honesty. Okay, we should not gamble, but then we need to become more and more honest in our relationship with Krishna. We need to be more and more clean in our behavior, not just keeping the room clean, but keeping the mind and heart clean. So these karmic principles become more and more subtle as we advance in our spiritual life, and Prabhupada established these for us. So, thank you very much.
So I'm practicing self-control by sitting by the cookies. You have a half hour for questions.
Half an hour. Oh, okay, wonderful. I was okay. Wonderful. So thank you. This is a wonderful time for us to have discussion because a lot of us in here, and there's so much to unpack. To get the discussion going, since we have a little time, I just want to relate one example, like a very down-to-earth story in our movement that I thought very nicely illustrates what we discussed, and then this will help us with, illustrate, apply it to our day-to-day life. There's one incident in England when the devotees, one devotee there, Mother Anuradha, told me this story, when the devotees were doing Sankirtan, and they were distributing books, and at the end of the day, she found outside of a store 1,000 pounds that were in the trash can right outside the store, at Tesco's. And so she saw this bundle of money there in the trash bin, and this was at the end of the day of Sankirtan. It had been a rough day. She pulled out that $1,000 and she said, "This is Krishna." Right? What could be a better end of the day of Sankirtan than you have 1,000 pounds lying there, and what a nice collection to take back to the temple. So she takes that 1,000 pounds back, and look at her devotional quality, that she didn't keep it for herself. I mean, she could have kept 1,000 pounds for her own use, but she went back and she gave it to their Sankirtan leader, who at that time was Giriraj Swami. He says, and told the story that, we were doing Sankirtan all day. At the end, right outside of the Tesco, I found these 1,000 pounds that are lying there. So she gives it to Giriraj Maharaj, and Maharaj looks at it and he thinks about it. He says, you should take this bundle of money, and tomorrow morning you should go to the counter and give it back to the store. And she's surprised, Sankirtan, this, that. She said she was unsure herself actually, but she wasn't completely surprised. But she was, taken a little back. So she does this, and the next day morning, she takes the 1,000 pounds and she goes back to the cashier and gives it to the cashier. Says, "I found this outside in the trash bin, and here you go. Here's the 1,000 pounds." And the cashier, when he sees her, he almost has tears in his eyes. He's saying, "Oh, you saved my job. You made me to save my life, because yesterday I was closing out the store, and instead of throwing out the trash, I actually threw out the money. I threw out 1,000 pounds in the trash, not knowing that I'd thrown that out, and kept the trash. And this morning when I came back in, they were accusing me of stealing. He definitely would have lost his job. He could have maybe gone to jail because he's misplaced 1,000 pounds. He's a clerk, he doesn't have a cashier. He doesn't have 1,000 pounds lying there that he can just, replace it." And he said, "I can't thank," he embraces her and, thanks her and takes the money back. And then after that, she's there in her sari and tilak. She goes there completely, dressed as a devotee. And after that, he asks her, "Who are you all? Who are you?" Right? So imagine that 1,000 pounds could have been used in Krishna's service. They could have bought a nice, 50 cakes with that 1,000 pounds. But giving that back made someone love the devotees, and possibly made that person into a devotee. I mean, that person will never forget her, never forget how nice the Hare Krishnas are, and his faith in Krishna was, established because of that. So that's a wonderful example in our movement of someone, like Giriraj Maharaj saying, "No, let's give it back," because that's the truthful thing to do. That's the right thing to do. Yes. So, for a few minutes, maybe you can reflect on this, talk amongst yourselves on the content of the presentation, and then we can take some comments for discussion. How's that? So about 5 minutes is turned over to maybe groups of 3 people, reflect on the presentation, and then we'll take comments and questions. So maybe 30 seconds more, just wrap up. Okay, yes. All right, so let's come back. Any reflections, comments, questions from your discussions? Yes, sir. Do we have another mic?
Obviously, we understood the importance of truthfulness, and that's very, very important when it comes to dharma. But at the same time, we hear a shloka from Srimad Bhagavatam, obviously, which I feel we misuse a lot. Which the sloka is Sarvadharma Vidyamam Evam Sharanam Vijayaham Tvam Sarvapapebhyo Mokshasthami Masujaya. So here we feel Krishna will protect us from the simulation of the lie or as well, right? So this is like most of the time this happens, and the beginners devotee like me, they feel if we are surrendered to Krishna, we are serving the movement, so we will be protected by this. So how to handle this kind of feeling or how to balance things out?
Yes, and that's very much the case. You explained the situation really well, that this is the common misunderstanding, right? That surrender to Krishna, therefore you don't have to worry about saying the truth or not, or following dharma. But what does it mean to surrender? So the principle is to surrender, but surrender means doing what the person you're surrendering to, what they want you to do, leading your life in the way that they are happy that you're leading it. So surrender means leading our life in the way that Krishna has prescribed, described in the pages of the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the way that his devotees are leading their life, and that is by following his principles of truthfulness, austerity, cleanliness, and mercy. So that's part of surrender. That's not the only thing of surrender, but that is part of surrender. And this is why a devotee who practices dharma, which seems ordinary, who practices dharma, is pleasing to the Lord, because they're doing both things. They're not simply offering lip service that Krishna, I love you. That part is also important. We have to say that to Krishna. But they're also acting on it. What it means to love Krishna means to lead by his instructions.
Yeah. And one more question if you like. So most of the time I see even in the devotee community, just to become more humble, sometimes they tell a lie, just to don't get the credit or I don't want to take the credit, so I just want to. So how to handle this?
Yes. One time, a very senior devotee told me that it's our duty to be humble, and it's also our duty to be a Brahmana, because we take Brahminical initiation, what Prabhupada tells us, right? And one of the duties of the Brahmana is to be honest. So we must be humble, but that also means that it's not about us, because we can say the truth and also be humble. Saying when we think we have to lie to be humble, that means we're thinking I'm the doer. No, I did it, but that doesn't make me brave. But at the same time, we should say the truth, because the truth is dear to the Lord.
Yeah, two-part question. One, there are some cultures I've experienced in this country where loyalty is considered higher than truth. In other words, you and I knew each other in high school. You helped me get out of trouble with my teacher or my bhakti leader. So I owe you one, you owe me one. I lie for you, you lie for me. And we're still truthful because loyalty is higher. So that's the first part. Second part is, I think, considering what's going on in the world right now, very serious question. You gave an example of the Nazis as a historical example, but we've reached a point, at least in this country, people are losing their jobs because they tell the truth. I mean, I personally have a friend who has a friend who's a preschool teacher who recently made a political comment, lost her job. A preschool teacher. So they say the rubber hits the road. to what extent, as Vaishnavas, are we obliged, looking into the future of where truth may be really tough, like your job's on the line, your religious freedom's on the line, everything's on the line. We may be coming there. So do we suddenly become kind of more pragmatic, like, you know?
Yes, so yeah, these are both such amazing comment questions, but also in some ways they're also making us reflect on these important topics. Regarding the first one, loyalty, actually loyalty is also you could say a dharmic principle, right? One must be loyal to the Lord, like we say, chaste, chastity, to Krishna, to the Guru, to the Gurus, as we heard this morning, to the Vaishnava. Goes to the point of, it extends to the point of, and I'm forgetting the word here, basically nepotism or help my, I scratch your back, you scratch my back. Like the example that you gave, huh?
Example of Karna and Duryodhana.
Karna and Duryodhana, very nice example. Right? Then it's displeasing to the Lord. And such a nice example is given there. That someone was kind to you, you owe them gratitude. And for that reason, you should be extremely loyal towards them. You should be kind, grateful towards them. But if it then comes to the point where you're transgressing dharma, you're performing sinful activities with them, you're being dishonest, like in the case of Bali Maharaj. He was loyal to his spiritual master, but when it came, now you're asking me to say a lie to the Lord, I'm not going to follow it. So there's a point, both in ethics, in Western ethics in that discussion, and more importantly in our scriptures that we find where the line is drawn. And if we cross that line, then it's no longer loyalty, it's just adharma. Like for example, it's the duty of the disciple to also protect their spiritual master, right? So if they are doing something wrong, loyalty doesn't mean that we just, we can also help them by saying something that will be respectful yet beneficial for the situation. And vice versa, the spiritual master to their disciple corrects the disciple for their benefit. So thank you for that. There's so much more to discuss on that. And the second point, Prabhu, actually, this is the greatest, I think, traversity of today's time, is that that truthfulness is no longer being valued, right? Whatever political position we are, but people are being told that it's not so important to be truthful. I remember when I was growing up, and we had the case of Bill Clinton, and he had an affair with one of the interns, right? And it came to Congress, and they decided, should we impeach him? I mean, today no one will get impeached for that. They'll probably get promoted for that, right? As we were seeing. So the discussion came in Congress, and they had a big discussion, and they said, look, people do this. So why should we impeach the president for having a fallen moral character? Because, in one sense, he is human. And so they said, no, we won't impeach him for that reason, which I think was not correct. They should have impeached him for that reason also. But the House still impeached him. Why? Because they said that, fine, he made that mistake, but when he was brought to court and on the Bible he raised his hand, at that time he lied and he said that I did not have the affair when he did have the affair. He said because he lied, therefore he should be impeached. So even just 10, 15 years ago, at least, and this is exactly straight out of Bhagavatam, right? Mercy is gone, cleanliness is gone, but at least truthfulness was there. The value that he lied, that's why he should be impeached. Right.
Can I just say something?
Mike, does that mean? That's right.
At that time, back in about 96, the New York Times, on the front page, did an article on that dishonesty. And so it exposed, the President of the United States. on that same page, I can't remember exactly the title, but Hare Krishnas admit to child abuse. So there was error on the part of the president, and there was honesty and truth that was presented on behalf of the devotees next to Anuttama Prabhu. I'm just saying that because the public is seeing that we're honest, we're moral, ethical people. We're not hiding and skirting behind other things that like what some other faith groups do. So we're telling the truth, and in addition to that, we're trying to we're working on it and correcting ourselves. So that was very noble language.
And Prabhu can maybe comment on this further, but as an institution, they appreciated that the leaders of the institution were honest and directly dealt with it. They didn't do what other religious institutions do and try to put it under the rug.
I'll just mention it's an ongoing effort. You know, there's a tendency to think, well, we were honest then, we don't have to be honest now. And of course, the situation itself is horrendous because part of that honesty Mirage is referring to, you've got to admit that we've had horrific abuse of children in our movement. So we can't say, well, we were honest about it, so we're no longer culpable. But there was nothing atrocious. It's atrocious that it happened, and we have to recognize that. Just like down here, you know, I so much appreciate the fact, if any of you look at the history of New Vrindavan posted right in front of the temple, you know, 1/6 of it or whatever, it's the period of despair or whatever, and they honestly assess the fact New Vrindavan was expelled from the movement, the leader at that time was put in jail, so, you know, they don't hide that. The day that that goes away, I stop coming to New Vrindavan, because the fact that they deal with it honestly, but we have to make sure we keep doing it, and all of us, and our families, and our companies, and our temples, we have to, I would suggest, request, we have to ourselves be advocates of that same honesty. Because just like the same way that woman, devotee, was given good advice by her senior to go back and turn the money. I have another story, Gurudas maybe was there, in Denver. Somebody dropped a wallet in from a Sankirtan devotee. There was, I think, the number $300 sticks in my mind. They went to the men's room, took the wallet, credit cards, everything, flushed it down the toilet, and put the money in their pocket for Krishna, and went back out. And when they came back out, they were greeted by a host of police, and that guy, who was, you know, the last time he pulled his wallet out was when he gave a $5 donation to the Hare Krishna devotee. So, you know, the rest of the night, there's like a huge, not huge, there's a big scene in the entranceway. 5,000 people walk by, not exaggerating, maybe, you know, 2 to 5 walk by, see the Hare Krishnas with the police. Oh, they must have done something wrong. The devotees lying to try to protect us. So we gained $300. You can practically gain $300, probably lost $3,000. What to speak of tens of thousands of dollars of goodwill, what to speak of the spiritual benefits and all of that. So sometimes we make the wrong decision, and it's just a reminder to all of us that we should, you know, raise our hands and say, well, excuse me, that's not the honest way to do things. And in this world, we know it always comes back and bites you. Always comes back and bites you. We believe in karma. It always comes back and bites you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And I just want to discuss Anandapu's last point about what happens if we live in a society where to be devotees, you know, it's so difficult. We have to lie. You know, like there's some countries where you cannot practice as a devotee. You know, China, maybe you're underground, and if officials come, you cannot say the truth. What do we do in that situation? So Prabhupada describes, and others will have more thoughts on this, that we have ordinary dharma, and we also have emergency dharma. So emergency dharma is there, it is a thing. In our scriptures, in discussions on ethics in general, emergency dharma is a form of dharma. That in emergencies, we do need to utilize our common sense, our presence of mind, and respond in a way that is beneficial for everyone. That's why Krishna is also a consequentialist. He tells Arjuna so many times, and his devotees, why have you taken this vow? I mean, what was the, isn't dharma more important than this vow? You all keep taking vows, and then I have to come back and protect you in these different ways. Right? His vow to enter the fire if he doesn't kill Jayadratha, etc. So Krishna also sees the consequence. And so in an emergency situation, we do need to do the needful and use our common sense. The problem is that we do it when it's not an emergency, right? So we have to be careful to apply the emergency dharma only in emergencies and when necessary. Eventually,
Hare Krishna. Thank you. My question revolves around when a devotee, or anybody in that matter, realizes they've told a lie, and some time has gone by, and they feel out of their own guilt that they want to rectify that lie, but the consequences of rectifying that are not good for them, nor is it good for anybody. It's not practical under any circumstance, but only out of their own desire to feel more honest, that they desire to tell the truth. Do we still understand that the truth is still so valuable that, yes, someone is lying, we should go and correct it, or do we take it as a position that, yes, I have lied, but in this case it's harmful to myself to rectify it, so I should just, in the future, not commit this offense?
yes, so we have to evaluate, is it harmful for myself and also for the other person, right? Is it harmful or beneficial for them? So maybe if we had lied and because of that someone else was, that bared false witness, and someone else went through a lot of difficulty, it may be good to rectify that lie. I didn't say the truth, and because I suffered. So it's a way of apologizing, asking forgiveness from the devotee, is by owning up to it. On the other hand, if clarifying that will cause more pain to that devotee at this point, years later, and it won't be beneficial and pleasing. So Krishna's definition, that's why the Gita is so important. So following those same principles, is it hitvata, is it beneficial, is it pleasing? If it is not, clearly it will not be beneficial for anyone to rectify it and reopen that can of worms now, then maybe we should not do it. One here, and then Mahatma Prabhu there.
Thank you, Prabhu. I had two questions. One you answered because you opened with, what should we do if our wife says rather beautiful, but I guess that'd be emergency dharma, right? The second was that framework that you just laid out, right? We want to speak the truth if it's pleasing and beneficial. But like in some cases, and there are two, like a doctor, right? He's constantly having to give truth that's completely displeasing.
Yes.
But it's beneficial. Or like a teacher who has to, they have a student that does really well, or they win a competition, and they praise them the wrong way. Instead of focusing on their efforts, they focus on like identity claims. And so instead of boosting confidence, boosts ego. And so I guess could you talk a little bit more about that framework and the idea of what it means to pleasing?
Yes. Very nice point. So that's a very nice observation. That's why Krishna starts, Prabhupada in his translation, he says first words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial. Because Prabhupada writes another time that sometimes when we speak the truth, it will not be pleasing. But still, he says, this is an actual quote, he said, but still we must say the truth. So the point is that we try to say it as pleasing as a manner, or we may just desist from saying something that is displeasing. But if it's needed to say the truth, we will say the truth, even if it's not pleasing. Because the first principle is you should say the truth, right? So there's so many examples of this we can think and discuss, but in the course of time, we don't have so much time. But sometimes it's a minor enough point. So to your first point about wife asking if I'm looking beautiful, where Krishna also knows what is said in a common sense way, or you could say as part of etiquette, and what really matters as truthful or untruthful, right? So, like my son or my daughter jokes with me and they hide something. That's a different mood than if someone is asking me something very serious and I say something untruthful, right? So, Krishna is telling us that we have to balance all these things, and he says in the Mahabharata, I believe, says that that's why dharma is not easy to practice and perform, because there are so many conveniences and it's not black and white. It's not like that. This is actually called virtue ethics in the field of ethics. That virtue ethics is actually a form of consequentialism. It says good or bad is determined based on the consequence. However, you know what the right consequence is. What's the right consequence you want to reach based on the virtue that you've cultivated within your own self. So if you are a good person, a devotional person, you will know what's the right thing to do. And that's why personal character cannot be separated from virtue. Virtue is not just a rule book. It's not just a matter of right and wrong. Your character must be good. Only then, it must be trained and practiced. Only then you will know what's the right thing to do in a particular situation. Because consequentialism could mean to one person like, okay, which is one definition of it, doing the right thing is to do whatever brings the most amount of people happiness. So a question comes up to the leader, he says, what's the right thing to do? Well, this will make 35 people happy and 5 people unhappy, so let's do the thing that makes 35 people happy. But it's not always like that, right? Sometimes you have to do what makes 5 people happy and you get 35 people are unhappy. So how do you know? There's no rule book that tells you. They say that is your own cultivation of dharma or virtue. So how much, when to say the truth or not to say the truth, how to say it pleasingly, when to say it even if it's not pleasing, there's no black and white for it. That is our devotional service. Right? That's our sincerity and devotion to Krishna. The inspiration that Krishna will give us within our heart that, okay, this is the principle, but this is how we need to apply it. Thank you. Mahatma Prabhu.
So just the last question.
I have a little story, and I'm going to stand in front so you don't have to strain your neck. This is quite an amazing story that I was about truthfulness. So I have a god brother, and he is he's no longer alive. He was a sannyasi, leader, guru, but he had a problem. And occasionally, he would watch pornography. It wasn't constant, but it would happen. And he came down with cancer. And I was with him about 2 years before he left his body. And one day, he revealed this to us. But I didn't know the extent of his problem. I knew something I didn't know. So he revealed that I've never been able to get this up. And I'm dying now, and it's weighing so heavy on my chest, I want to just put it on mine that this is my problem. So I was helping him, Lori John Prabhu was helping him, I forget who else. So we were discussing that evening and saying, well, the ramifications, exactly what we're talking about. What you're going to die and your disciples are going to have this in their memory. That was my first thought. Like, I don't know. Other people were like, how could you even think of telling him not to reveal it? Because you're lying, you're untruthful. So we're going around like that, and we say, Maharaj, let's talk about it tomorrow morning. This discussion went on in the evening. The next morning we got there and he said, I've already put it out online. So the first thing I did is I wanted to, get a sense of how people are going to respond. So the first place I went was to the Ritvik site, because I guess some of you don't know the Ritviks, but Ritviks don't like gurus. They don't think anyone should be initiating guru. So anything a guru does, it doesn't matter. It goes like this, they'll report it. He goes, like that, they're recording. They got me, you know, they got me on my wife's Facebook photo. Her head isn't covered. That's what they got me on. I said, oh, that's pretty good. So anyway, I go to the Rithik site, who's criticized every guru in ISKCON. And you know what they said? They said, another ISKCON guru has fallen, but at least he was honest. That was the first guru they've ever glorified because he was honest. That says a lot about honesty. And the problem we have in our movement is nobody admits it till they're up against a wall and the evidence is there. Isn't it, gentlemen? It's very rare someone will come out and say, I'm watching pornography. It's only when they finally find it on the computer, like, what's up with this? Oh, someone must have put it on. So anyway, I thought that was an amazing story about truthfulness.
So we should have a round of applause for Gopal. He's here all weekend until tomorrow afternoon, so you have continued conversations with him. It's not an easy topic. I think you made the point clearly that we should. I'll just add this, my thought. The world is really going not a good direction. And if the Vaishnavas can't stand up and give an example of exemplary behavior, at least on our 4 vows, what hope is there for the planet? You know, not that we're so important, even for a little tiny incident in, but if we can't stand on our 4 vows, who's going to stand up for any kind of religious principle? And then the one thing, just emphasizing your point, that we all should recognize, especially those that are married, if your wife asks you, does this dress make me look fat? You should immediately understand this is an emergency situation. And that's not mistaken. Prabhupada ki.